Well, for this football season, my main goal is put my name in that category of great Michigan defensive ends that came through here.
Braiden McGregor on the In the Trenches podcast from today, Michigan defensive end. Wants to be, when it's all said and done, on that list of great defensive ends that came through Ann Arbor. And Jim Scarcelli, who joins us here on this Wednesday. Scar, recently, I mean, we can go all the way back to you, talking about great defensive ends, but just in the Harbaugh era, Michigan's had a lot of those defensive end edge guys that have gone on, and they had great success at Michigan and went on and got drafted pretty high in the NFL.
Yeah, we've recruited well at that position, and we coach well at that position. And I hope McGregor has a great he could be a 2 more year guy for us. He's continued to get better. I mean, the kid is a physical specimen, and you can see why he was highly recruited. And he's from my neck of the woods. I'm cheering for him. And you got Denny. I coached a long time, man, and I've said this before. You have to have good edge players. You cannot hide guys there. You got to have good athletes there. They got to play the run. They got to contain the quarterback. Bear Bryant said, and I remember I read every Bear Bryant book he ever wrote because I thought he was just good. And he talked about your 3 best football players got to be your 2 defensive ends and your free safety. And I know as a coach, you can't hide inferior guys at certain positions. But yeah, we are becoming edge U, and hopefully, we got 4 good players there. So.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, when we were watching some spring film, you got to put a 5th guy in there with Keyshawn Bennett as well. The way he played, At least he factored in depth-wise. You never know how things are going to work out, and it's nice he put his best foot forward in the spring. Well, as we put our best foot forward here on this 24th of May, we've got a lot of nice things to talk about. There isn't one gigantic thing out there, but a lot of nice things to talk about. That includes EA Sports and some news about the athletes getting some, I guess, kickbacks or, compensated. I don't know, kickbacks probably not the right word. Compensated for their name, image, and likeness on EA Sports. Everyone's favorite Kirk Herbstreit talked about Ohio State fans. Scar's got some thoughts on that. Plus, he was looking at the state of Michigan and the talent in the high school ranks, and he has some recruiting thoughts as it applies towards Michigan. Also, the Nebraska spring game and the Nebraska Cornhuskers, which Michigan, as everybody knows right now, on September the 30th, they'll travel to Lincoln to take on the Cornhuskers. And then I have a Maryland prediction by a college football writer, and I want to see if Scar buys or sells that prediction from this national college football writer. But first, Scar, you mentioned and we saw it right up there at the top, EA Sports, and they're bringing it back. Is that something that you're excited about?
It just brought back memories for me because all my years as a coach, my players would say to me, "Hey, coach, man, I'm playing this game, and I see your number out there, and I've used you in the game the other day, and then the article that I was just reading is how all these guys are going to get a piece of the action now. So if their names and their likenesses are, the kid has to sign a waiver to put his to opt in, and E and A said they're going to give the kid a couple bucks. So it was just, it's just good. It's good to see that these kids are going to get compensated for their name and their number and being used, because my name and number was used for all those years. And like I said, my players used to joke about it and talk about it. I never played the game, but it's just it's interesting, and it's good. I'm glad that they're going to get a little kickback.
Well, as video games go, it is the GOAT. I mean, the people just love it. And when it was canceled, it left a huge hole for people that just love video games. And, there was a real depression that set in. So having it come back, it will fill a void, and people will be going nuts Oh, that is exciting. And yeah, also the players will be able to get compensated. They were always, it was always a little weird, here they are, everybody loving this game. They're charging $70, $80, $90. Who knows how much they'll charge for it now. But, and then, you get all the player stats. You're like, hey, what are you getting out of this? Nothing. Now it is something. Oh.
Yeah, my players used to say, hey, coach, we like to play you. They got you as a smart guy, but you're kind of slow. I guess you could, the players were rated. I never played the game, but anyway, it's good. It's a good deal out there.
Very accurate, a video game. Vince, who counts down until kickoff, and then Michigan playing East Carolina, he says we're going to miss out on the 100-day countdown, which I'm guessing is tomorrow, because he says only 101 days left as of today. Happy Wednesday and go blue. Vince, I always appreciate you counting it the season down. And yeah, 100 is one of those nice days to, think about Michigan football and that marker where you get to 100 days tomorrow. So 101 days out. That is, something to think about. Also something to think about, if you watched Scarcelli over the last couple of years, you'll notice that in the football season that he'll make a pick for the upcoming weekend. And I was recording it, but Scar, it got to be like you were 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. And it was like 5-1. I think I should have done a better job of recording it exactly, but I think you were something like 13-2, 14-2 last year in the 16 games you picked. Something like that, right? It was a pretty amazing clip that you were on.
Yeah, sometimes, Denny, those things aren't by accident. If you understand things, you understand matchups. I just remember as a player, Coach Schembeckler would stand in front of the team and he would talk about the season and, these teams that are playing. He'd say, this team, Iowa's going to beat this team and Indiana's going to beat that team. And he was right because he understood the matchups. And as a coach, you got to understand matchups. Anyway, they've got lines out already. There's some games. Let me take a peek. I'm on FanDuel. I like Michigan State at home getting 11.5 against Washington. That's going to probably be a night game. Washington's going to travel 3-4 hours. I like the Spartans at home. You can put that bet in now. I like that. I also like Nebraska getting 7.5. I'm going to cover Nebraska. They're going to Minnesota. I really like their quarterback. We're going to cover them, but those are two picks. I got them in already. Spartans getting 11.5 at home, and Nebraska going on the road getting 7.5.
Yeah, I'm a little scared myself of Michigan State because last year I was I have to say it. I don't know if I was high on that. I was kind of high on them. I was picking them in games, and I picked them, I think, outright in Seattle last year, which obviously blew up right in my face. So I'm a little bit scarred from picking MSU, but it is a gigantic number, and it is at home. So I know what you're looking at. I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, you said, look at that Charlotte over and under. And I looked and I couldn't, but then I did find a Charlotte over and under on a website. It's like 2.5 for the season.
Yeah, that's, I just, he's bringing in good players, man. Biff is, he's got a bankroll too, man. So we all know his history, and he knows how to get kids. He's got a couple former Michigan guys there, and he's bringing in players, and he's got a John Harbaugh guy running his defense, and the same system as that we have. So yeah, that's another good pick if you can get a good low number on that.
People are feeling a little bit like me, like they it's tough wading in there with Michigan State. Speaking of Michigan State, we have a little bit of breaking news. Within the last hour, they put on social media that their last game of the season, Michigan's last game of the regular season, is against Ohio State on Saturday, November the 25th. Michigan State was set to play Penn State on that Saturday, but Michigan State took that game and moved it to Friday, where normally the high school state championship games are, and they're moving the state championship games to the weekend, and Michigan State is going to play at Ford Field on that Black Friday. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, a couple things. If I think I have better players than the opponent, I want to play on a fast, dry track. Okay. If I'm Michigan State, I don't have better players than Penn State, in my opinion. I'd rather play them on a wet, crummy field in November. But that's one thing. Okay. I bet you James Franklin is happy with this. If I'm James Franklin, I'm happy I'm playing on a fast track because I got better players. That's one thing. So, Michigan State thinks that recruiting is big. They want to have that Detroit presence and this and that, and they're Metro Detroit fans. I read the article. But, I'm looking at from a former high school coach. I played in the state championship game when they were all played on Friday. And that was a great day. You had the Lions played on Thursday. You had the state championship games on Friday. Now they play Friday and Saturday, the state championship games. All day Friday, all day Saturday, which is nice for the high school players. And because I don't like playing it on Saturday because that's a Michigan-Ohio State game. It's not as many people watching the high school games. But anyway, they're going to push it to Saturday and Sunday, the high school games. So I've already talked to some high school guys. I got some they're pissed off. There's a lot of high school coaches that are pissed off and not real happy with it. I'm looking at it, well, okay, you bump it a day. Sunday is actually better than playing on Saturday because you'll have more people watching, that are high school fans. I know for me, because I'd rather watch, high school state championships on the Sunday the Lions aren't playing. So it depends on what you like. But, a couple things out there. I think James Franklin is happy with it. He knows he's got a fast track. He's not playing on a wet field.
Yeah, and I don't like it with the high school. This year it's weird. It's the first time the NFL is going to play on Black Friday too, so I don't know what time that game could be going up against a marquee NFL game, which good luck for Michigan State on that. So you're going to have college football and pro football on Black Friday. And then, moving the high school games, you're right. The one thing about Friday, and the NFL has basically stayed away from it, is that they don't play their games on Friday because of high school, except in this case, and Michigan State in college, they do it a little bit, but at the beginning of the year, Michigan State does it, but they don't do it the rest of the year. Now they are. I don't like any, just as a rule. It's nothing against Michigan State here. As a rule, I don't like neutral site games. I would rather see that game in East Lansing. It's better for college football to have their fans in there. You're talking about the difference between the NFL and college football. One of the big differences is the colors and the bands and the home stadiums. And NFL does tend to be a little sanitized. That's what Ford Field is. So going indoors and going to a neutral site takes away a little bit from college football. If Michigan, Ohio State were playing at Ford Field and, or at the, they do it for the Big Ten championship game, it's just not as.
Another thing, Danny, I'm thinking about, if I'm a senior, that's my last Michigan State football game. Now it's at Ford Field. So now you're right. That last home game, obviously it's going to be moved up to whoever they have earlier, but yeah, the finances, it's always down to money too. There's got to be a financial issue there. I'm sure the East Lansing people aren't happy. All the hotels and restaurants in East Lansing.
No, why would they be? Right.
Getting cracked. Detroit people are happy, but who knows how that, who kicked a couple dollars where? Who knows?
Great point. Maybe somebody said, "Hey, Mel, here's $50,000. Spread it around your staff," and Mel's just like, "Okay," put it in his back pocket and said, "We're all set there." The other part for Michigan State, they might not be bowl eligible. So, they do play bowl games, the Quickie Oil, I don't know what it's called now. They're at Ford Field. So the Spartans could be hedging their bet a little bit like, hey, we'll whether or not we're bowl eligible, we'll play in a bowl type setting for our fans. I don't think that they're thinking that way.
I hope you're right about them. That they're, we're 5-7, 4. I hope we're right about them. But, I don't know. The guy won 10, 11 games the year before. So, with similar kind of talent, you don't know what to expect.
No, you don't. Let's move on to something, we just talked about Michigan State. Now, how about talking about something a Buckeye had to say, and it's college football's own Kirk Herbstreit. He was at a banquet recently. Jim Tressel had some interesting things to say to Toledo Blade, and so did Kirk Herbstreit. I'll read it for those of you that either can't see what's on the screen or are listening on the podcast. Here's what Kirk Herbstreit had to say about fans that were putting pressure on Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, talking about getting him fired after losing 2 games to Michigan. Herbstreit said, quote, "The 15 percenters, they get mad at everything. That percent is going to get mad at something always. Day could win the Michigan game, go to the playoffs and lose, and they will be mad about that. That group is just a bunch of jackasses who embarrass all of us Ohio State fans." Herbstreit went on, "So I don't really care, honestly, what that group thinks. But the people who matter, the logical people who actually have a brain and understand the sport, they love what Ryan Day has done. The fact that this is even a topic is almost comical." What do you think about
people are accustomed to what's been happening over there. Fat and happy Buckeyes have been beating up on Michigan and, be in that playoff and having success and, gold pants and championships. And Jim has shut it down for a couple of years now. And they're going crazy. And that's what we want. Michigan wants that. We want that 15% to become 40% if we beat them again, and that's what we want to happen. But yeah, I've always said this from what I want from our program, from Jim Harp, from what I want from our Michigan program is that year in, year out, we don't rebuild, we reload. We are able to compete year in, year out for a Big Ten championship. I mean, seriously compete where people look at their schedule and say, oh, hell, I got to play Michigan, and that's where we've been, and that's where we're going to be again this year. We have the talent and to compete year in, year out for a championship, and it doesn't always go your way. You have injuries, you have problems, but I think our program is to where it is, and yeah, the Buckeyes are just spoiled, and I think he makes a good point. He doesn't want, and Herbstreit, in defense of Herbstreit, because I kind of wish Jim would have had some people like that early on when he was struggling, because Herbstreit doesn't want that 15% to become 40%, because then you're going to have more administrators who are going to listen to these 40% a little more and then contemplate making changes.
Yeah, I don't know about Herbstreit and that. Certainly, every school has a bunch of jackass fans. To use his term there. But the one thing about college football fans, and then the media and the broadcasters, they spend a hell of a lot of time talking about that 15%, because they'll say, "Oh yeah, they'll all mention about the 15% wanting him fired." And you said it right there. The other part that I think about a little bit here, Scar, that if they lost this year, it would go up to 40%. What if they lost 4 in a row to Michigan? What if they lost 5 in a row? Would those people be jackasses? Because Harbaugh lost what should have been 6 games, and now people look back and say, "Oh, the Michigan fans, those jackasses that wanted Harbaugh out, oh, he damn near lost 6 games in a row." It was very, it wasn't, being some like seething, mouth breathing fan, just like a little revisionist, looking back in the history there. So there's a lot of things that play there. I just know, being a broadcaster, people are always go, "Oh, I saw something on Twitter that one guy wrote about, Penn State being a bunch of whatevers." And then everybody's like talking about this one guy. Well, that all seems a little bit weird to me. They're part of it. Certainly, I get it, what he's saying there. But everybody feeds off of that. They love the negativity, and they all talk about it. And then Herbstreit will do the same thing. So,
one last point also. Yeah. If we do get him again, if we get third base 3 years in a row, and they're talking and they're getting hostile. And then it becomes a point, Denny, where we don't want Ryan Day to go nowhere. Because I know as a coach, there's certain guys, you just get a handle on the guy. You figure him out. You understand. And maybe other people had trouble with him, but if you figure that guy out and we get 3 in a row on him, I don't want Ryan Day to go nowhere then. Stay right there, third base. Just good enough to keep his job where we keep hanging championships.
Yeah, if Michigan wins 3 in a row, I'll send him a big bouquet of roses down there. Tell him.
John Cooper, man. We didn't want John Cooper to go nowhere. We wanted him right there.
No, we wanted him with a lifetime appointment. I'm to the point right now. Like if they said, "Hey, you want Ryan Day fired?" No. I just send him back to second. He's on first base. He's not on third base anymore. Send him back, where he belongs. That was good stuff. I like it. This is college football talk. You like college football talk all day, all night. You like Michigan recruiting, football, basketball, portal news, features, the summertime when you're like itching for Michigan news. Well, you have it all day and all night on the Maize and Blue Review, which you can join today by going to michigan.rivals.com. Yesterday, I wrote about things to expect from the Michigan offense. I think I had 5 things out there that you should expect. I looked up a lot of numbers, was doing some percentages. I was all, really taking a microscope on that Michigan offense and what you should expect. And, you can expect that kind of stuff on the Maize and Blue Review. So, Scar, you watched a little bit of Nebraska and their spring game. And I want to know what your takeaways were when you watched the Huskies and their spring game.
That is going to be, and I know a lot of listeners are, they're a Scar. You're overrating them, but I think that's going to be a tough game. We went down there a couple of years ago. Tough game. You play, it'll probably be a night game. They're going to have a sold out crowd, but Matt Rule is a good coach. He's a real good defensive coach. Okay, I looked at their spring game, and he's running I-backs. He's running with a fullback. He wants to build a physicality to his offense. Nebraska has a quarterback, Denny, that they got this kid from Georgia Tech who had been there for a couple years. He played as a freshman, and he's a kid who I think is going to be one of the top quarterbacks that we face this year. He's a good athlete. He's an athletic kid. He'll be with the next group, I think. His name is Sims.
Yeah,
but he is a real good athletic kid. He's going to be he's out of that Leah mold from Maryland. Him and the Maryland QB will be 2 of the best that we face. So that whole game, I think we have better players at probably 17, 18 of the 22 positions. I think we have better depth all over the place than this team. It's that quarterback. And when I look at him real good, he's an issue. And then I think Rule is a good defensive coach and a good play caller. They were doing some similar things to us offensively, which I think helps their defense. But I think our offensive line, I think we have a lot more depth and we have better players there. I think our defensive front is we got better players there too. So I think that's the Sims kid right there throwing that ball. That's the kid I think we're going to face. There's a big difference between him and the second string kid. But they had a fullback, Rule had a fullback in the offense. He ran a lot of plays with a fullback, and there's not anybody else on our schedule, that was running some of that stuff. So, a little old school Nebraska stuff. He wants to be physical. The quarterback is good. We go on the road. It'll be a game that we will have to be all firing on all cylinders, Denny. Firing and ready to go on all cylinders because of the quarterback.
Yeah, well, because of the quarterback and also, where that game is going to be played. Michigan was able to handled Nebraska pretty well last year. But 2 years ago, that was a game after Michigan did a really good job taking care of Wisconsin. That was a 3-point game. Michigan was up 13-0 at half, but you remember 22 points by the Cornhuskers in the third quarter. And, you needed that big play from Hawkins. Remember the Hawkins had
he stripped the ball. So anyway, the plays you're seeing there are a lot of the same stuff we run. So, and a lot of people in the Big Ten run that stuff, jet sweep with the 2 tight ends from the pistol. We run the same stuff. So those things help your defense. Yeah, this is the Sims kid here. And I just watched him play at Georgia Tech the last 2 years. He played as a freshman. And, and now Matt Rule he's going to benefit from all the learning and all the games he played for the other guy who got fired at Georgia Tech. Denny?
Yeah. How about him going live in their spring game with the quarterback?
Well, that's good. He got to find out what guys. Another thing about Nebraska, Denny, since we're talking about him, and I read this, and this is interesting that I haven't seen of anybody else doing this. Look, Michigan is going to have a high school camps starting next week or a couple weeks. They'll have 3 of them, one-day camps, $25. Best bang for your buck in the country. $25. Michigan's camps. Anyway, Nebraska is having camps, okay, where they're going to evaluate players, but it's not high school kids. They are kids that just graduated from high school. They're already graduated that may have been overlooked. So they're recent high school graduates. They're junior college kids that are playing junior college football, and they're kids that are in the portal. So he's bringing these kids in that are in the portal. He wants to run them, lift them, put them through some drills, and and evaluate them. So I just thought it was interesting that a camp is focused on high school graduates, junior college kids, and transfer portal kids. So that's new. That's Nebraska. I give the guy credit for thinking outside the box. Denny, when your program is struggling, maybe you can't always do what everybody else does.
Yeah, well, Matt Rule's a good coach. It didn't work out with him at Carolina, but he was good at Baylor. Where was it before there? Temple?
He was at Temple. The guy won everywhere he's been.
Yeah, that's it. There it is. Gary's saying you guys worked with Calvin O'Neill and Jim Betts back in the day, both
legends, legends, Michigan legends. Good men, Calvin O'Neill and Jim Betts. Those are great Michigan guys, man.
Yep, I'm familiar with those guys.
But anyway,
like it.
That's what Nebraska's doing. That game, we have to be ready and hitting on all cylinders. You go in there with a great defense, and it's the quarterback. That's the thing. He has an average game. We're going to be in good. Here's I-backs, here's fullback. So we're not seeing this. We're not seeing this from anybody else. So he's running it. And we'll have to work on some of that in the fall, and Jim will have to start. And we run some fullback stuff, so it'll be good.
That's right. I'm surprised also that they had a great turnout there. Clearly, you could see that. And there's a nice throw.
Now that's wait till you see him run though, Danny. The kick and run, and he'll have some empty stuff where he'll run them, and that's the stuff that bugs me, scares you as a coach. When the guy can run, he'll come out empty. He's not afraid to run them.
Not only were they going live with their quarterback, I've never seen a team go live at kickoffs in the spring game. The time before we just watched, they were live down there tackling on special teams, going after them. Amazing. A lot of injuries.
Yeah, well, he's trying to set a tone, set a tempo.
That's right. That's exactly what he's doing. We'll watch just a couple more throws here. This is the guy, Sims, that you're talking about, the transfer, Jeff Sims, his name.
That's our play. That's power play away from the tight end. We run the exact same play. So again, but again, when I look at Nebraska, I see very average defensive football players. I see Michigan with better players on defense. I think we out recruited them. We're going to out coach them. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing from their defense. That I think we have better players.
Yeah, and for me, like, you can get as nervous as you want about the schedule. You can get nervous about anything, but if you're a Michigan football fan, I'm nervous about the non-conference because everybody's already looking past it and looking towards Rutgers. You're nervous about Michigan being, ranked as the number 2 team in the country, maybe in the preseason. There's all kinds of things that can make you nervous. But I think Nebraska being Michigan's first road trip, being their first game that they're going to play on the road. That game 2 years ago was at night. Maybe this one will be as well. I don't know if you need to get nervous about that. Like a lot of people last year, myself included, were pointing to the Iowa game. We weren't going to know anything about Michigan until they went and played in Iowa City. And yet, Michigan handled the Hawkeyes pretty well that day. And, that it was close 2 years ago at Nebraska. Does that mean it's going to be close this year at Nebraska? No. But, it is a night game or could be a night game, and it is Michigan's first road game. That is something, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah. So anyway, it's game we should win, but it'll be a challenge. So anyway, I just wanted to cover them. I looked at their spring game. I'll look at Minnesota next week because we got them the following week on the road. We go to Minnesota. So I take their spring game. I'm going to take a peek at what we're seeing from the Gophers.
All right, let's look at some of the feedback. OT saying, for how level-headed I am, you sure can be quick to call for people to be fired. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been quick to call for people to be fired. I give people a long leash. In general, a glass half full, and I give people a long let them go out there. And I do understand. And it reminds me a little bit of just a conversation I was having this week, Scar. And it's a little bit off the topic here, but it reminds me because Scott Frost was given a long time at Nebraska. He was given a long time because he was an alum and he won a championship at Nebraska. He was a Nebraska man. He was a fan favorite. So you do get a little bit longer. That's what, somebody made the point about Juwan Howard that, to be possible that even if Michigan didn't have a successful year last year, that, Michigan would give him a little bit longer leash because he is a Michigan man, and that does play into it. I think Jim Harbaugh, you could say he had a lot of success at the NFL. You knew he was a good coach. You knew that if there was one guy that knew Ohio State more than probably anybody in the world, it would have been Jim Harbaugh, even though he wasn't having success again. And that was the things that I kept coming back to after 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row. And eventually it would have been 6 in a row. I was like, all right, well, but, so I think that is a point, that.
It's a lot easier. I think it's easier now for someone to turn a program around quicker because of the portal. And, and so much of your success as a college coach, when you just get a job, I mean, you got to get it right at the quarterback position. I look at Fickle at Wisconsin, man. That's one thing that guy, he brought in 3 good quarterbacks. So you got to get it right. And I don't think Frost ever got it really right at the quarterback position.
Good point. You better.
I mean, he didn't have the athletes all over the place, but it definitely was very average to below at the quarterback position.
There you go. Cameron, I was talking with one of my mutual friends, and if he's watching this particular show, I bet he's screaming at his screen because what he told me, I take the non-conference and I basically like, those are 3 wins. And I didn't talk about like Rutgers and, I'm talking about, moving all the way ahead to the first road game that maybe, he wanted to make a point that when I talked with you, and it's what Cameron's saying here, Michigan better show up every week focused on that game and winning a championship, or else they're going to get tripped up. But, I feel, Harbaugh's pretty good at keeping the team focused. I could talk about running through this thing, like a machete and everything else and, skipping this game and everything else. Harbaugh and company, they're good at having all of those.
Dan, you got to get ready to go every week. Cameron's absolutely right. You got to get ready to play every week. And if I'm a coach, in Michigan, look, we should win the non-conference games. Okay. And then we got Rutgers and then we go to Nebraska, right? So if I'm coaching Michigan, the big thing I want a bunch of guys to play and develop a lot. I want to win the darn games, but I want to develop a bunch of depth and play 60, 80, the whole freaking roster in all three of those first games. But more than anything, we got to have a backup quarterback solidified. We got to know who the hell it is. So, because then we got Rutgers, the fourth home game. But then when we go on the road, I want to know who our backup quarterback is. I want the team to know that he's got a bunch of reps in those first four games, and we're confident. So if JJ gets tweaked up or something, so that's what I want. So you have to accomplish a lot in those three games other than winning, Denny. You really got to get better and get the confidence of your backup kids.
All right. How about a question about the offensive line?
Is our O-line going to dominate again this year? I think our O-line is the depth. You got 10 guys that can start there. We got a great depth. We got great coaches, great players there. I think our offensive line is going to be, and our whole offense our run game is going to be better, Danny, because I think we have 4 tight ends that will be able to block. When we lost Alls, we only had 1 tight end that could block. We had Scooney, and that was it. And then we got the freshman who's an imposter. We couldn't run anything at him when he was in the game. We got 4 guys, I think, that now when a defense looks at Michigan, they're not going to be able to say, oh, they're not running to 18 or they're only running to 86. No, we're harder to defend because I think we have more depth and more guys that can block at the tight end position, which makes us more difficult to defend. So, yeah, I think our run game, we got the backs are a year older, a year smarter. JJ's a year older, a year smarter. So we got to have the pass threat to make your run game. They play hand in hand. We all know that, and we have enough pass threat. But our run game should be a little bit better from those reasons. Tight end, running back, better, year older, more guys that can block at the tight end position.
Yeah, and that is a great point about the tight ends. You're right down the list from Barner to Hipner to Klein. You heard about him, and Loveland should be a little bit bigger. They should be able to do all those things that you want in the run game. Olo did such a great job. Olo with Timmy last year, but the transfer that might have been the Michigan's biggest transfer that they were able to get out of the portal is Drake Nugent. He is, Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the top center coming back. That's something. They graded him out. He is one of the top 3 or 4 of centers in run blocking. I mean, he's a star like that. Olo's got big shoes to fill, but Nugent, and I was listening to the In the Trenches pod, I don't know if this week or last week, but Nugent's got a nasty streak, man. He plays hard. People are going to love him. And Keegan and Zinter before NLI, I think both of those guys would have been gone into the league, and Michigan would be talking about, well, they've got some talent in there and El Hadi and some different players that they can move around. These 2 guys are NFL guards. Michigan on the inside, I don't know if it's ever been better, considering these guys are a year older and bringing in Nugent on the inside. I would start there. And both Trente Jones and Carson Barnhart, came on in a great way. There were people that were questioning him midway through the season, and then he really showed up in the second half of the season. And now they've got guys behind them that you could put in there. Great competition there. I feel great about Michigan's offensive line, Scar.
Oh yeah, we should be. Yeah, and let's hope Nugent is as good. I watched his film. He looks like a tough, nasty kid. But we hit the jackpot with Ulu, man. I mean, that kid. That was an all Big Ten football player, and hopefully Nugent will give us the same thing because our center position was outstanding last year.
I'm over here watching the Nebraska spring game, and I'm just going to play one more highlight. We got a running back who makes a nice little jump cut here for a touchdown, so let's watch it, Scar.
Yeah, they're a little different than us on defense. Okay, well, they're bringing some pressure there. But again, when I'm watching Nebraska defensively, I'm just kind of looking at athleticism and strength and toughness, and I just think we got. Let's see what he does here. There's just a straight fullback there, man. You look at that as a great run. It's funny when an offensive guy looks at a play like that, he says, "Oh, great run by the running back." But me being a defensive guy, I say, Terrible tackle by the linebacker.
Yeah, I want to go back.
Guy.
I called it a jump. There was no jump cut there. He ran over a guy. I mean,
he's not even. This is a terrible tackle here. Linebacker takes it on. The other guy's free. Left shoulder. He right shoulder, and he knocks off him. That's just terrible.
Yeah, he broke a tackle. Okay, yeah, it wasn't a jump.
So anyway,
first maybe
again, typical offensive guy looks at it like he's a great play by the. I look at it because it's a terrible play by
some good feet there initially. He dances instead of, he breaks it out in the daylight, which is good. And
I guarantee you, the kid that left Nebraska, he ain't missing that tackle. Junior ain't missing that tackle. All right? Michael Barrett ain't missing that tackle. That's why that kid plays for the Huskers.
They're going for 2. Let's see. I said last play, but now here, I don't know what happens here.
And nobody covers them. So that's defensive breakdown. So anyway,
okay,
we got to play smart, secure the ball, and get a handle on that quarterback's ability to run, and we'll be fine.
Scar, you were watching, or you were, looking over, doing some, whatever reading, and what jumped out was one of the Detroit papers had put out a recruiting list from the state of Michigan, and it caught your eye.
Yeah. Well, it had a couple names on there from Chicago. God, I was hoping you could put that thing up, but it had a big defensive lineman from Chicago. Michigan's in his Final Four. I forget the kid's name. And
Justin Scott.
Yeah, that's the kid. Okay. Anyway, big 5-star kid. He'd be our top kid if we could get him. But we've done well. We used to do well in Chicago, and he doesn't have Illinois on his list. So there's a chance we could get him. I think the big kid I like, and he didn't. The writer didn't have. I want the kid Swain from West Bloomfield. He's got Michigan on his list still. That's a kid I think is a special edge, Rashawn Gary, Kwity Paye type kid. He could be. That's a kid that, I'd like to see Michigan get. Is that kid from West Bloomfield. But anyway, the article was good, and I was hoping you could put it up. But Chicago, a bunch of those kids were from Chicago, and Michigan has always done well recruiting Chicago.
I'll tell you what, I will get that list up for you next week because I'm looking at my email, and for some reason it just didn't go through. So I'm looking at my other email that maybe, I don't know why you would have sent it to that one, but no, my Gmail, it's not there for some reason. It didn't come through, but I'll have it for you next week. Just like it reminded me, I was going to talk about Jack Nicklaus at the Michigan golf course in the shot at number 9 that Mark was telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. And Mark is on the list here. I see using some feedback, and, Mark made it sound like he knew exactly what I was talking about, threw some shade at me. I was just going off of my memory, but it was completely different than what Mark's memory was. I did do a little work online to see if I could find about Nicholas at the Michigan golf course, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm gonna have to make some calls, Mark. I haven't forgot about you, especially since you challenged me, and your memory of something is completely different than mine. We'll see. Maybe you'll have it.
Right. Jack, I wonder. Jack, he played for the Buckeyes. I wonder if he would have gone. Would he have gone against Michigan on that course back in the day? I don't know.
Yeah, he did. And and I'm thinking that the time that I was out there, and I don't want to, I'm not going to name the guys that told me about this. It sounds like I'm name dropping. And then there might not be the ones that told me that, but I'm almost sure that some former Michigan football players I was out there, and they were talking about, hey, this is the spot that Nicholas drove to green. And I was like, whoa, drove the green, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, yeah, now a lot of people could do it, and still this was 15 years ago. Now, the guys hit so much farther, it might not be that big of a deal. But Mark's acting like he hit it in the water, which is completely different than what I've heard. I heard that he drove the green, and that they were thinking about putting a plaque there. So we'll see. We'll see who ends up being right. Maybe Mark, Michigan Mark knows his golf history. Yeah. We'll find out, Mark.
Hey, Denny, another thing I read this week that, I don't know, may be of interest to some of our listeners was IMG Academy in Florida. You've heard of them, the big school that brings the kids in from all. They got 14 3-star or better, 24 kids. 14 3-star. That's unbelievable. The Buckeyes have offered 8 kids on that football team. That's where JJ went his last year. I couldn't get a read of how many Michigan offers were there, but I just thought that was interesting that there's 8 Buckeye offers on one football team, one high school football team.
It is a football factory down there. I was looking at a college football mailbag today from Stuart Mandel from The Athletic, and when he got to the Big Ten, he wrote this. He wrote that Maryland will upset one of Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State. Mike Locksley's program has been getting a little bit better every year, from 3-9 to 7-6 to 8-5, and brings back star quarterback Talia Tungavailoa, veteran wide receiver Jay Sean Jones, and breakout running back Roman Hembry. I wanted to ask you, Scar, are you buying or selling what Mandel is laying down about the Terps, that one of the big 3 will get tripped up by the Terps?
If I was betting, I would say no, they don't, but they very easily could. If someone said make a bet, I'll say no. But they are getting better, and I covered it. I talked about Locksley. The guy's doing a good job recruiting, and he's got one of the top quarterbacks we're going to face. I know that I got beat up a couple of weeks ago, Danny, talking about Maryland. People think I'm overrating Maryland. Well, we fought our butt off beating them in Ann Arbor last year. That was a war until the end. You remember that game?
That's a 7-point game, Scar.
Yeah, we had a hard time stopping them. You know, their play calling was excellent. Okay, they lost their coordinator, but Locksley's, he's got his hand on the offense. They got Josh Gaddis over there. Now he's going to be doing something. He's a good recruiter, but I tell you, when you look at teams that we're up against recruiting in that area, Maryland is always in the hunt. Still, it'll be Michigan, Maryland, Penn State. Whereas 4 or 5 years ago, you didn't see a Maryland kid. Even though the kid was from that area, they didn't have Maryland on their list. But Locksley is doing a good job of at least getting those kids to take a peek at Maryland. But that game is the week before we play the Buckeyes. It'll be a tough game. We go on the road. The big thing is, will Leah still be healthy? Because they run him a lot. That's the downside of how much they run the kid. But, yeah, I agree with that writer's view that Maryland is trajectory, and Mike Locksley, they're going up. They're doing better. He's getting players, and he's a good coach.
Yeah, Toledo really didn't play well against Michigan last year, and there they still were with a shot. I don't know if he got hurt or he got
hurt in the end, and you're right. He didn't play. That's the thing about him. He'll have games where you look at the kid, he's like unbelievable, hard to defend, and then but everybody does that. But then you want to be consistent. But yeah, then he made some mistakes at times. So
he played well against Ohio State last year. I think that's where Mandel's coming from as well. That was the games I watched. He's a gunslinger. So when you get a gunslinger like that, he's emptying his clip out there, and he'll do that against all 3 of those teams. I don't know. I wouldn't place the bet because I wouldn't want to bet. It's not like I want to see Michigan lose to Maryland, so I wouldn't get involved in that bet either. But I thought it was interesting. They're from
the guy's a good coach, and it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Maryland has been the kind of program, ever since the big guy got out. I can't remember his name, but they've been every 3-4 years, a new coach type of program. And no stability, and looks like I can't think of his name. The big guy,
region.
Yeah, Friedgen. Yeah, he had him winning there. But I think they're. Every 3-4 years looking for a new coach is probably over with Locksley.
Yeah, I can remember the Bobby Ross days, going back there. You better be ready to go, when Ross coached the.
Yeah, we played against Bobby Ross. I played against him my last year. They came to Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we beat him up here. We beat him up in Ann Arbor.
I like it.
Yeah, what else we got out here, Danny? I see Narduzzi coming after Prime 2, calling him out. Narduzzi was saying, when I took the job at Pitt, we didn't run guys off. So I don't want to keep beating up that Prime thing, but I saw Narduzzi, his sentiment was similar to mine, that he's just straight running guys off. So,
hey, that's the first time I've heard anybody, say anything positive about Pat Narduzzi in 3 years. Normally when that guy opens his mouth, just a bunch of garbage falls out. So, hey, Finally, Narduzzi, you're so far below the Mendoza line. Finally, something fell out of your mouth that somebody agrees with. What a joke Narduzzi is. But okay, that's good. I was looking at the early Labor Day weekend schedule, and Coach Prime Scar. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to you. One of his games, I don't know if I think it's a Thursday, one of those Thursday or Friday, before Labor Day. It's Coach Prime is going to to be featured. One of those games.
I think he's got TCU early.
There
on.
you go, TCU.
He's getting like 20 points, so they're not. They think they go down.
Take Coach Prime.
No, I don't know. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points, and they're kind of disrespecting him there. Right? But TCU's a good football team. So
if Coach Prime was playing, I'd be more apt to grab the points. A couple questions, couple points. If you want to get one in for Coach Scar, fire away. The punter says that Maryland game is an interesting spot for all three of those teams. Versus Ohio State, it's after a bye. Versus Penn State, it's the game before Michigan. And versus Michigan, it's sandwiched between Penn State and Ohio State. The punters can see it. Justin says Maryland always has players, but they are never deep. So when the really good guys go down, the second stringers are a huge drop off.
He makes a great point, Denny. That's the thing that is always separating the great, the Michigan, Ohio States. Maryland might have 30 good players, whereas Michigan has 50 really good players, and that's huge when you're going through a physical Big Ten season and you're playing someone like week 11, like we're going to be playing them. So it's a great point. You got to have depth. You got to recruit depth. You got to play. That's why those first three games, man, I always, I wanted to, anytime we had games early in the year, to develop and play a lot of guys as a high school coach, because you got to get those guys reps when you're up. You don't want the first time the kid is getting big time reps is when the score is 7-7 in the fourth quarter. You want them to get those reps. When the pressure's not on so much.
I'm with you on that. AJ with some advice. Micah Capana, be on the lookout. A running back from Nevada. He looks like Blake when he came out of high school. Definitely underrated. All right, noted from AJ on a recruit. Mark says 98.5. Don't go to pros. Isn't it a school first football? Transferring college academically, not fun. It's like Moneyball. You'd have gone to Stanford rather than a promise from the Mets. Not exactly sure where that one was coming from. Maybe some of your comments about Nebraska and what they're running and what's going on. And here's somebody that agrees 100% with Scar. The depth will be a big-time game changer, especially with college football playing more games.
Well, another thing, you're right. Depth is huge. You got to develop depth. But, Denny, the rule change, we haven't talked about it. The rule change is now – it's now in college football now, where the clock will run after first down. It's solidified. It's done. And, that's going to – that hurts Michigan. That, again, it shortens the game. If we're playing Indiana, we got better players. I don't want that rule. I want 8-10 more snaps of a football game that could decide a game. There's more room for error, more room for our better players to beat you. But when you take off 8-10 snaps from a game because you're running the clock at the first down, that helps the inferior, talented football teams. So that rule change, it will speed up the game. It helps the inferior, talented teams.
Okay, I'm going to have to mark the time and day that I say this. I don't think that it's going to make any effect or have any effect on college football at all. I don't think anybody's going to talk about it. But, that's it. That's what I think. I also thought the clock in baseball. This is going to be the worst thing. Not you, Scar. I'm saying baseball is going to be the worst thing ever. Oh, my God. And I said, no, it's going to be fine. And it's fine. So I think this one's going to be fine, too. I don't think it's going to have any effect, but we'll see. Scar, You're the coach. And
I just know, Denny, when I was coaching and I had few numbers, I had teams where I had 25, 26 kids. I'm playing someone with 50 kids. They got bigger, better players, more talent, more depth. I want that game. I want to maximize the amount of time in between each play. My offensive coordinator had a stopwatch. The play would be run. We would start the stop. So we would maximize every second to shorten that game. So if we're able to get a first down and move the football, we want that drive to be longer and longer so we can, minimize the possessions. And, you follow me on all that? So, yeah, that's why when you're outmanned, you want to shorten the game.
I understand. I get it. All right, Scar, anything else? We seem like we've covered it all.
No, 100 days will go fast. The players are enjoying this time of year. They've got camps coming up. I'll probably go up to one of them. I got some friends, some guys I coach with that are going to be going up to one of those camps. And it's the greatest. Michigan has the greatest bang for the buck, $25. Are you kidding me? You got a kid that wants to learn high school football and you can see the whole facility, see the stadium, and you see it all for $25. You get coached. And I applaud Jim and the coaches for not gouging the kids, and they coach them up and they teach them and they get a good experience.
It sounds like a deal for me. I wish they, let in, 52-year-olds. I'd, spend the money and go down there to the camp myself. I don't know if it just to hang out. All right, Scar, appreciate it. We look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, Danny, all good. Go Blue.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. Thank